You're listening to Impulse to Innovation. The Institution of Mechanical Engineers podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Helen Mees. As a global community of mechanical engineers with over 120,000 members in 140 countries, the Institution of Mechanical Engineers has been at the heart of the engineering profession since 1847. The institution's mission is to improve the world through engineering by sharing the latest news, views, and insight into the creative world of technology and the people that make it happen. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Institution of Mechanical Engineers Impulse to Innovation podcast. We are live from Formula Student 2023 at the world-famous Silverstone Circuit, home of the British Grand Prix. I'm your host, Dr. Helen Mees. It is great to be back here at Race Control. We're in the Race Control building, overlooking the National Pit Straight outside and reaching out across to the Silverstone UTC. This morning, I had the pleasure of interviewing one of the judges over there, and we'll be playing that interview as part of the podcast when we finish the live recording today. I've got some wonderful guests joining me today, and they're going to be talking all things Formula Student, including competitors, judges. We've got some of the FS staff and some of the sponsors and a few special guests along the way, which will be great. Now, if you're listening to the podcast for the first time, welcome. It's good to have you with us. You can also access all 36 episodes of the I2I podcast directly from the IMechE website via www.imeche.org. Or you can listen in from our Podbean site at www.imeche.podbean.com or any podcasting service provider that you already use. And we have a fantastic collection of shows covering everything from EVs right through to brewing. So if you want to have a listen to the show after today's live podcast, please feel free to go along to our website and have a listen. This is not just any Formula Student event. This is the Silver Jubilee of FS. And what an amazing 25 years it's actually been. There have been over 45,000 students taking part in this competition since its inception. And that's tens of thousands of hours of design, prototyping, building, testing, and competing. And not to mention the time and effort that the judges, who are all volunteers, they're all engineers who are passionate about motorsport and about STEM education. They put so much time and effort into taking part and giving their time up to be part of this. So we give a big shout out to them. Thank you so much from all of us for putting the time and effort into the show. And of course, Giles mentioned the staff at IMechE. They do an incredible job, and we certainly couldn't do this event without them. What is this competition all about? Well, if you're not familiar with Formula Student as a competition, it is essentially a set of tasks that the university students have to go through. They have to conceive, design, fabricate, develop, and compete with a small Formula-style race car. They can enter into different parts of the competition. Internal combustion engine vehicles are obviously the traditional vehicles. I think I can use the word traditional now. They have electric vehicle competition, alternative fuels vehicles, which include hybrid powertrains, and they also have driverless vehicles, which is what Giles was talking about, the AI vehicles. The competition starts with a series of technical inspections to check that the vehicle is safe to use and is compliant to the rules. And then the competition is divided into a series of both static and dynamic events. In the static events, the team car has to undertake design, cost and sustainability presentations, and also a business presentation. Technical and safety scrutineering, which you heard me mention while I was talking to Giles. And one of my favourites, the tilt test, where the car has to go up on a 45-degree tilt bed, and also brake and noise tests. In the dynamic testing, they have to do a skid pan test, which is like a figure of 8 round cones, a sprint test, acceleration test, and then on Sunday comes the endurance challenge and also the fuel economy challenge. For each of these sections of the competition, they accumulate points. The team, obviously, with the most points is the overall winner, but there are also individual prizes for various sections of the competition as well. So many of the teams who don't win the overall prize do actually pick up trophies and awards throughout the competition. So I hope you've all got that. And that all makes sense. So now you're as familiar with Formula Student as I am. Welcome to Formula Student. I can see that my first guest has joined us, so I'm going to introduce him, and he is a very special guest. Giles, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. Giles, thank you so much for joining us. I have to say, for those who are listening today, we are really pleased to have Giles Hartill with us, who is the 138th president of the IMechE. Giles, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast again. You've been on the show before, and thanks for dialing in. I know you're really busy.
It's amazing to be on the call with you today. This is such an amazing podcast, Helen. So thank you so much for all you do to keep it going and expanding it. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, that's really kind of you to say so, Giles. Thank you ever so much. You must be really pleased, obviously, to be celebrating as president of the institution, but also Formula Student's quarter of a century during your presidential year. What does Formula Student mean to you personally, and what does it really mean to the institution as a whole?
Well, personally for me, Helen, motorsport has been a massive part of my life for so many years. Since a kid, I've been a huge fan. I go to Le Mans every year for the 24-hour motor race. I have been doing that for over 20 years. And when you look at Formula Student, I mean, it's obviously a training grounds for the next generation, but it's also an amazing spectacle for spectators, like in its own right, which is why it's such a fantastic event to attend. And really, from IMechE's perspective, obviously this is our flagship event. We do so many amazing student challenge competitions throughout the summer. It's a really fun time for us as an organisation. But this is the big one, and particularly with its celebratory year, it makes it even more special.
Yeah, I think the whole atmosphere here is just electric, and there are so many teams out there as well. I came year before, and it was just kind of coming out of COVID, and it was very subdued, and there weren't many teams. But this year, it seems to have got right back to where it was, and it's absolutely buzzing out there. I know you're not here today, but you're going to be coming over the weekend, aren't you?
Yeah, I know. I can't wait. I'm actually sat in our Birdcage Walk headquarters in London. So I'm here working today, but I will be there on Sunday. I cannot wait.
Yeah. Now, Giles, I know that the launch of the IMechE's 2030 strategy is something that is really fundamental to your presidency, and it's very personal to you, I think, as well, knowing how much involvement you've had in it. How does a competition like Formula Student fit into the strategic objectives of the IMechE and enhance its mission to improve the world through engineering?
Well, Formula Student couldn't be more perfect as an example, to be honest, Helen, because when you look at our two strategic goals, you've got membership development and we've got impact. And if you take membership development first, that's all about providing the opportunity to learn and apply engineering, not just for our members, but technicians and engineers more widely. And what do we see? The students and everyone that's involved in Formula Student doing? They're doing exactly that. So it absolutely fits that perfectly. And then you take the second goal around impact. And what does that mean? Well, if you look at Formula Student as a showcase to promote engineering, to demonstrate innovation, to really lead on real positive impact for society, in terms of like what people are learning as they participate in Formula Student and then what they then become. later on in their lives. It just is such a perfect example.
Yeah, I was talking to one of the sponsors actually earlier today, and he was saying, what an opportunity it is for the students to take part in this, to build their confidence, to enable them to experience what it's really like to work in industry, and to be part of this engineering community that we live in, which is such a wonderful place to be. It doesn't matter what field of engineering you're in, right? It's all part of this community feel that we have. Now, we know that many of the competitors that have taken part in FS have gone on to do incredibly successful things, wonderful careers, but not just in automotive industry, but have contributed to all areas of engineering. What do you hope that the FS's long-term legacy will be, kind of looking forward now from your presidency to the next 25 years?
Well, I think if you look at Formula Student as a whole, first and foremost, it's a real opportunity for students to apply themselves. That's obvious, right? But the thing that I've found when I've gone round and spoken to the teams in the past, and on Sunday I expect the same response, is that quite often the technical side is almost a given, because they're all just technically gifted. They're learning and they're applying what they're learning. And quite often the thing that I get back from feedback from talking to the competitors is actually the non-technical stuff, where the biggest growth benefit is and the biggest win for them is, whether it be the non-technical side of time management or leadership of the team, etc., teamwork. Like those elements are where I think it very undersells itself, and overachieves, because that's the real world experience that the teams gain, and over and above what you would learn from your standard project engineering during your course, for example.
Yeah.
But also, when you think about it, it doesn't matter whether the students end up in motorsport, in the auto industry, in wider engineering industry. For me, there's a real legacy of the lived experience of those involved, who then go on to do just amazing things, when they apply what they've learned throughout their careers, continuing to innovate, throughout that time. And you've actually used the word already. The sense of community that you see in everyone that participates in Formula Student is just absolutely mind-boggling. Whether it's the students, competitors themselves, whether it's those that support them, the volunteers, the members, the staff, the sponsors. I mean, just an absolute massive thank you up front from me to everyone involved, because it is just such an amazing event.
Yeah, and I think we do have to give a big shout out to the staff, particularly the IMechE staff who are here today and who work on Formula Student throughout the year, bringing us this incredible event. They really do an amazing job, and we couldn't be here without them, could we? I mean, it's a huge undertaking to put on something as big as this event. We've got, about 130 teams, I think, here this year. So, from all over the world, which is quite amazing. I really don't know how they do it.
That's the thing. It's not just an IMechE event. It's not just an engineering event, I think, even these days. I mean, it goes beyond engineering, and I think some of the things we do and that the engineering community does, where it goes outside of engineering into sort of general public understanding, I think is where you get a lot of really big impact.
Yeah, most definitely. So what are you looking forward to seeing then when you get here on Sunday? Are you bringing family with you?
Do you know, I'm not. I did last year. I brought my son last year, who had a whale of a time. He was only three years old last year, and he absolutely loved it, particularly sitting in one of the Bentleys.
I can honestly say we've been and done the same thing this morning, Giles, as well.
Some of the teams were very kind and they were offering to, let him sit in the car, but he was a bit young. He didn't quite want to do that. But no, unfortunately, I can't bring my family because I'm actually going camping this weekend and I'm leaving the campsite to come up to Silverstone, especially. It sounds like the crowd, etc. There's loads of people coming Sunday. I've even just heard that we might even have an MP turning up on Saturday.
Wow.
So the level of exposure that we are having is really high this year.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've had a walk down the pits this morning, all the way down to scrutineering, and it's just a buzz down there. All the static events are going on at the moment. So when you obviously get here at the weekend, it'll be the dynamic testing. So I think you'll have a wonderful time regardless. And kudos to you for giving up a family holiday to come to the race meet as well. That's really good of you.
I mean, I wouldn't miss it for the world. It's such an amazing event, and the most fun thing for me is just walking around and like the pits and talking to the teams. The insights that you get in terms of like what they do in terms of innovation is just the mind boggles. I mean, last year I remember seeing the AI vehicles, going around the figure of eight. My mind was just blown away. That we've got students that are capable of designing, building, coding, autonomous vehicles so effectively, and look what's happening in the world around us. They're going to be the future.
Yeah, totally. It does kind of put you in awe of some of the things that these young people are developing now compared to certainly when I was a young engineer. So it's really quite fantastic to see the electric vehicles and the AI stuff. And I'm looking forward to seeing how the AI competition develops. And we've got some guests on later on who are going to tell us all about that. So I'm quite excited to hear from them. Giles, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today, all the way from IMechE HQ. It really does kick off our podcast to have you on the show. So thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. And really wish you all the best for the rest of the podcast. It's such a great initiative. Thank you again, Helen.
You're welcome, Giles. It's great to speak to you. Take care. Have a good day. I am really pleased to have Elliot Heames in the studio with me, Managing Director of IPG Automotive UK, one of the FS sponsors on the show today. Elliot, welcome to I2I podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Thanks very much. I'm delighted to be here.
You've been sponsoring the event now for a good number of years as a business. So what brings you back to Formula Student each year as a sponsor?
There's a few aspects, really. Simulation in general is getting more and more prevalent in industry and more important in how we develop vehicles. And so we want students to be as familiar as possible with the genuine use of simulation in industry. When they come out of university, the employability factor is really important. And of course, there's the other kind of side benefits of that, of being able to recruit good people who are familiar with our software, which is obviously a sensible byproduct.
I guess it's the atmosphere as well, isn't it, of being part of this community, seeing these young engineers kind of come up through the ranks by taking part in this competition must kind of give you a little bit of a buzz too.
Absolutely. There's some real intelligence downstairs and there's some incredible kind of technological feats that are being attempted, and I'm very impressed. And the buzz is, as you say, brilliant. It's really nice to see these guys coming through and making me feel particularly old and out of touch, I have to say, with some of the things they're capable of.
Yeah, totally. It just astounds me, actually, the way that they go about tackling the problems. And each year, of course, the competition gets more and more complex. There's lots more challenges introduced into it, I suppose, as well, which keep them on their toes. And yeah, you're absolutely right. They do make you feel like you've forgotten a lot of your engineering skills, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, you've got a very hands-on approach to the competition, don't you, Elliot? Because, what aspects of the competition do IPG Automotive get involved in terms of taking part in the competition yourselves?
That's a good question. So there's two aspects for me. There's the personal aspect of coaching young people to be brilliant at what they do. And I've been kind of keen on coaching for many, many years. So that kind of brings me personally in. But the kind of IPG Automotive UK aspects, there's a number really. So number one, I've just come from judging a couple of the FSAI teams. That is really good because you see great people coming through. There's a lot of interest. We can kind of directly affect how the competition is going year on year and give students the right tools to be able to deliver what they need to deliver. So that's the kind of key main one there. Obviously, we want to be able to promote IPG Automotive as well. We want to be able to recruit good people, and we want to be able to get in early in people's careers and give them the guidance of what is genuine engineering in industry that they need to be doing, rather than maybe a perception, an incorrect perception sometimes of what industry feels like. Particularly in the UK, I've got a bit of a chip on my shoulder about what engineering is, and trying to educate people as to what a real world career in engineering is and how awesome it is. I mean, I've had over 20 years in industry and loved every second of it pretty much, and I want to be able to kind of pass that on. A couple of other bits we do. So number one is the LTS, lap time simulation part of it. So I've talked about FSAI, the driverless car. We also put software into the competition so that students can both develop their vehicles using our tool CarMaker and just generally make their cars quicker around the track. But the LTS is a competition aspect within the event as well, where we give them the infrastructure in which to optimize a lap time with a car we've put into the software already. So we give them a virtual vehicle with a few design constraints, and they're able to tweak that and maybe build a DOE so that they can run many, many, many tests in the software. It's all for free, obviously, so that we can get people to learn faster, and they come out with good skills, hopefully, in what optimization technologies can deliver.
Yeah, so I'm quite fascinated by this Formula CarMaker program that you've set up. Can you tell us a little bit more about the details of that and what the students get from that?
I can certainly try. There are people in my team far better versed to do about this. So we provide a virtual vehicle that's as a kind of a base vehicle to build from, so that they can tweak it to their own vehicle dynamics properties and so on. We provide an infrastructure in which to test it, so some virtual tracks with cone placement technology and that kind of thing. And then we provide the CarMaker infrastructure to be able to run multiples of tests using Test Manager. And that is kind of industry-grade software that enables students to be able to do it like we would in industry, really, and develop those vehicles. So within that, we provide each team a number of licenses, and every team can apply for it and register for kind of the Formula CarMaker side of it. And then there's the competition side as well that kind of helps to force the mindset of how do we optimize these vehicles, and that's LTS. So the two are slightly separate, really. One, you can just use the industry-grade kind of world-class tool set of CarMaker to be able to develop your cars, and then the other one is the competition bit to be able to gain some points from doing such a thing as well. And one is on your own car, and the other is in a car that we've provided for you.
Right, okay. So going back to what you were saying about, preparing the students for life in the real world, this opportunity to engage with a company like yourselves and see what happens in the real world and what not only a job might be like, but actually how you go about using these tools is really fundamental, isn't it, to the opportunities for young engineers today?
Absolutely. It's just opening people's eyes as to what they might like to do in the career, but also what they won't like to do. I mean, that's also equally powerful. What do you not like doing? And so we've got, within the framework, we've got access to our experts. There's a forum on which people can post their questions, and either forum members in the community can answer or some of our experts in the business. And it's a global forum as well. So we've got people around the world who answer those questions as well. And then we do various webinars and there's lots of posts on social media for what new stuff is coming as the package is updated with CarMaker 12 and so on. So yes, there's an interaction as well as just throwing licenses at people and have them just kind of learn in the dark. We do support them heavily to be able to get the most out of it in a very short space of time as well.
So I know that you guys have got a stand down in the paddock as well, haven't you? So what can visitors expect to see when they come to the event, if they're coming, on the weekend to see the competition, or actually the students who are going round at the moment?
So the thing that people mostly will be interested in is we've got a static driving simulator down there. So you can physically drive CarMaker in a virtual environment. We've got some little tricks and things with autonomous aspects or the driver behaviour. If an elk jumps out in front of you, we can simulate all that kind of stuff. So you can have a go on that. And then I've got a bunch of industry experts in there as well. So we've got some of our technical team as well as some of our commercial teams. You can go and talk about the various different aspects of what we do, not just the deeply technical kind of supporting customers and the consultancy that we do, but also how do we engage with customers and sell things to them in the right way. What I always say to the team is, what problems are we going to solve for those customers? That's the major thing. What is the complex technical question that you're trying to answer? So if you are one of the teams here, the guys are on hand to be able to help. And last year, actually, we got involved with a little bit of coding. Somebody came over and said, look, it's last minute stuff. I need to fix something. Well, I can't remember how complicated it was. It was well beyond me, that's for sure. Can you just give me some pointers? And the guy sat down and did a bit of a coding challenge together for an hour, and we're able to kind of have that relationship building, which is really important, I think, as we try and recruit people out of this event as well.
Yeah, a great way to build confidence as well in the students for the future as
absolutely,
well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Elliot, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure to have you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the weekend. It'll be great to come down and see the stand later on. So I'll hopefully get around to coming and having a look. Maybe take a little go on the simulator.
Absolutely. Well, we're delighted to have you down there. Thanks very much for having me here.
Great. Thank you. I'm joined by Ella Barrington, Engineering Management Consultant and Senior Business Plan Presentation Judge. It's quite a title. Ella is also a Formula Student alumni from 2008. Ella, it is great to have you on the show, and thanks for taking time out of your lunch break to talk to me, because you're really busy right now, aren't you?
Thanks, Helen. No, I am beaming from the other side of Silverstone Circuit, because it is a busy old schedule we've got here, because we are only involved in Thursday and Friday. So we are busy, but it's really a privilege to get to chat to you today.
Well, I am just going to say to our listeners, I'm actually looking at the building across the track that you're in, because you're over at Silverstone UTC today, right? So you're judging the business plan section of the competition. How's that going today? You know, how are the teams coping under the pressure of you judging?
Well, hopefully we are nicer as judges than we initially seem over here. But no, it's been a really nice energy this morning. Everybody's turned up on time. Everybody has made it all the way under the circuit to us over into the UTC. So it's been a really, really great start. And particularly seeing teams that are here for the first time, it's been really lovely to be met with that kind of enthusiasm for this competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there will be teams that have never been here before. So they'll be quite nervous, I guess, about this whole process that, you know, they're taking part in.
Absolutely. I can remember being a student myself, and you've worked so hard and you've put so many hours and literal blood, sweat and tears sometimes into this competition. So it feels like this is like a date that's been in your diary for so long, and when it's finally here, that can be quite overwhelming. But I think the thing to remember is that it's a learning experience. It's not always about the trophy that you win or the number of points you score in a round. It's about the learning that you get from getting it right, from getting it wrong, from talking to the judges. Because again, we are friendly people. It's about the conversations that maybe you have with us when we're walking up and down the stairs or in your feedback sessions that really make Formula Student the special thing that we all know it is.
Yeah, and of course you have been a competitor as well, so you know I guess that's something that you can sort of fill them with a bit of confidence. But I'm guessing that most people will assume that a race car competition really is all about speed on the track, the design, the manufacture, the build of the car, and all of those kind of technical aspects that we understand as engineers. But the teams, they also have to understand the business side of this, right? Don't they? There's the need to understand the investment potential and the value of the vehicle that they're building. So can you tell us a little bit about the BPP segment of the competition?
Sure. I think particularly in the world and the economy that we currently live in, whether you are in pure race team mode or you are in niche engineering or advanced automotive, the numbers have got to add up. The years of endless sponsors giving you blank checks, that's not the world we live in anymore. So every single motorsport and automotive organisation in the world has to be able to understand how to make a profit and how to survive. And so the BPP is part of preparing you to do that, whether you want to become part of a commercial organisation, or you want to run your own team, or you want to run your own business. Fundamentally, you need to be able to understand that the numbers need to add up to a positive number in the end, because if not, you can't pay people. And that is a real fundamental life skill that we hope that you take on from all of students into whatever you want to do. And even if maybe accounting is not going to be your thing, the power of communication and persuasion is really important in an engineering career. You don't just talk to other engineers about your little niche of engineering. You have to convince your boss that, we need this extra piece of software. You have to convince a racing driver that, maybe they could try a little bit harder. So that real kind of power of communicating what you do is, again, something that is built into this competition through BPP, that we hope people can, again, take something out of it that empowers them for their future.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the nature of engineering today is we're not in sort of basements, sort of in dark corners doing this technical work. We are actually having to face the board of directors, the business owners and all of the stakeholders in our profession these days. And preparing these students now in this kind of environment is a fantastic opportunity for them, isn't it?
And I don't see in other kind of engineering graduates that don't do Formula Student, I don't see as many opportunities to really try that out in a real life environment with real judges who come from industry. This is a really unique opportunity to get involved in. So I know that some people would much rather spend their whole weekend over in the live pits doing dynamics, and it's a bit like, static events they're just kind of the added extra thing that we reluctantly do. But actually, hopefully, when you look back, when you're as old and grey as I am, you look back on your Formula Student years and go, actually, that was really, really useful, because when I need to go and ask my boss for a pay rise, I understand how to put forward a business case.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, in this competition, all of those points are absolutely vital. You've got to put your all into every aspect of it, not just the on-track stuff as well.
Absolutely.
One of the things our listeners also might not be aware of is that you don't actually have to have a car here, do you, to take part in the business plan aspect of it? Can you tell us a little bit how that sort of part of the competition works?
Yeah, absolutely. Concept class, where you don't have to physically build and bring a car to Silverstone this weekend, that is judged alongside the rest of the classes. So there is absolutely no reason. And if anything, you've got more opportunity to make a great job of statics and really throw your heart into BPP, because you are not physically unloading a van over the other side of the circuit. So absolutely, it is an even playing field over here, depending whatever class you're going on. We also have AI judging. They do judge to a slightly different rule book, because it's a very different beast. But again, it's everybody's taking part in the business plan, regardless of what kind of outside category you are in.
That's awesome. As a past competitor, what aspect of the competition did you enjoy most when you were here on track? And what would you say to any of the students considering taking part in Formula Student in the future?
So I was really lucky. So I was part of a team in 2008, and we did the US competition, the UK competition, and the German competition.
Right.
And
wow.
Yeah, we were really lucky. We got to spend quite a lot of time in the US, and it was a fantastic experience. I was already being paid to work in motorsport, and to some extent I think I thought I knew it all, or maybe not all of it. I thought I knew a lot. Actually doing something completely independently with such minimal support from the university, so much of what I learned was the really practical things like how to pack a shipping container, open it at the other end and discover the car's in 4,000 pieces. And we basically shouldn't have bothered assembling it before we sent it to another country because we had to assemble it again. When I then was lucky enough, to be a full-time traveling race team person, those skills were really what was vital. Yes, I'd got the FEA. Yes, I understood the dynamics. Yes, I'd done a business plan before. But it was really that kind of resilience and teamwork and picking ourselves up because, again, you spend so many sleepless nights with people from all over the world. And I think that is another thing that former student can really prepare you for the real life of motorsport. Motorsport is hugely international. It's hugely multicultural. It's getting increasingly diverse in lots of different respects of that world. So actually getting to do competitions with people from all over the world was just a really influential thing. And it made, I look back on it so fondly, but I definitely couldn't stay awake for as many days as back then. And I don't think I've ever liked the taste of Red Bull because I think we drank far too much of it back in the day.
Well, it's nice when you're at that age to be running on adrenaline for an entire week at a time. But I guess it's nice now that you can sit and enjoy that experience and draw on your experiences from being here at Silverstone and share that with the students as well.
Absolutely. And I'm 15, nearly 20 years out from my first Formula Student experiences. And the people that I've met during Formula Student from my team and from other teams and sponsors are the people that pop up across my career. I've hired people from my Formula Student thing. They've hired me. We've worked together on consultancy projects. It's actually a very small world once you get into motorsport. So it's really nice to kind of see a familiar, friendly face, and you've kind of got this shared experience that you all went through. So when it seems really rubbish and dark and cold over the next couple of days, because every team will have that moment, remember you will look back on this fondly when you're older.
Ella, thank you so much for sharing your personal experience of this and also, giving us an understanding of the business plan presentation part of the competition. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Helen.
I ought to say, actually, I don't do this alone here. And I always embarrass the team when I start talking about them. But I have a wonderful team from the IMechE who support me to do these podcasts. And I've got my wonderful engineering sidekick, Saeed Ansar, who is pressing lots of buttons and making this whole thing work. And I know he's not able, because he's not got a microphone.
I've got this one here. I can say hello.
Okay.
There you go. Hello.
So for those of you who wonder how we managed to get out such a wonderful podcast, it really is down to Saeed.
Thank you so much.
And over to my right, I have one of my awesome support team, Carly Nettleford, who is one of the IMechE's policy managers. And I tend to work very closely with Carly. She acts as our producer on a lot of occasions and gets us our guests and sorts us out with all of those things. And popping out of the room right now is Bella. Bella joined the IMechE not that long ago now, actually, but she is amazing at all the audio-visual stuff, and she helps. So you'll be able to see some of the videos that we'll be recording, because I'm surrounded by cameras as well as microphones and loads of equipment. So I've got some of my wonderful guests who I haven't seen for quite some time. But it is really nice for them to join me. Naomi Rolfe, hi.
Hello.
Hi. I'm right behind Andrew Deakin. Andrew, I appreciate you taking the time out today, because you guys must be absolutely rushed off your feet right now.
Absolutely. I don't think I've sat down for longer than 5 minutes today.
No. Well, thank you for coming on so early. We do appreciate it. Naomi Rolfe is Senior Projects Executive for Competitions for the IMechE, and Andrew Deakin is Chairman of Formula Student. So welcome to both of you. It's great to have you in the studio. 25 years Congratulations. You must be both extremely pleased to be celebrating this incredible milestone for the competition. Particularly you, Andrew. Obviously, I mean, you've been involved right from the inception of this. How does it feel to be here 25 years on?
Yeah, it makes me really proud to be part of this, which has been a great experience over the years. It's now half my life I've been doing Formula Student, and to see it develop from where it started in my era in 1998 with 3 UK teams and a couple of American teams coming across to what we've got today, 130 teams annually. It's really good to see it happen and see what the students get out of it and builds them for their careers for the future and all that sort of stuff, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been down the pits already, and I've just spoken to Giles Hartill, who's president of the IMechE, and said to him that the buzz down there is amazing. From when I last came, which was just after COVID, there was still that tentativeness about being here. Now it's just full on, isn't it, out there? I mean, it's absolutely packed with teams and with sponsors and everyone. It must be really nice to know that in this 25th anniversary year that you've been able to bring it back to its glory from before COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to see everyone back on site and everyone without the rules imposed for social distancing and all that sort of stuff. The teams working together really closely and the collaboration, and hopefully get much more of that as this year goes on, with the teams working together to improve their cars and overcome all the issues they see when cars break down inevitably and all that sort of stuff, and they have to fix them and get back out on track and succeed.
Yeah, well, I have been down and had a quick chat with a couple of teams, the guys from Oxford Brookes as well. They were so excited because they'd managed to get through a big portion of their testing this morning in 3 hours, which they'd never been able to achieve before, which, they were so excited. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Oxford Brookes do, as well as obviously all the other teams. I'm not biased. Well, I try not to be anyway. Obviously, my old university is here. So now, Naomi, 130 teams from all over the world. It's a huge logistical challenge, really, isn't it, to coordinate all of that? What makes Formula Student so special for these young engineers, and how do you coordinate something on that scale?
Yeah, it absolutely is a logistical challenge. Some days I'm counting wristbands, and the other days I'm trying to sort out fire extinguishers for the various garages. So very different levels of work there. But no, I mean, I think it's so special for the students because they are taking that theory that they're learning in the classroom, that they're learning at their universities, and they're putting it into practice. And they're really taking all those skills and, taking it out on track. Yeah. And I think that's a big part. I'm actually a languages graduate, and I always kind of equate it to your year abroad.
Right.
Because you sit in the classroom, you learn all the grammar, the vocabulary, but until you get to, your destination country, you don't necessarily get that opportunity to really use it in real life.
Yeah.
And so to me, Formula Student is that opportunity to use all those skills, but they are designing a single seat race car prototype. It is their opportunity to kind of take those skills and make something real, tangible, and then get the opportunity to, do what they'd be doing if they were working for a Formula One team. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that whole experience, like you rightly said, it's very easy for us to sit in classrooms and to learn the theory and the science behind it. But it's not until you put all of that into practice that it really comes home to you. Just how challenging it is. I'm not going to say difficult, because that's the wrong word for engineers. We thrive on difficulty, but it's the challenge, isn't it? That overcoming all of those problems, and suddenly you're putting it into practice for the first time. I guess you must see quite a lot of the students get quite overwhelmed by being here. That really emotional opportunity for them.
Absolutely. We have an all-team photo that takes place on the track, on the start line.
Yeah.
And just seeing them, they get so excited to be on that start line, to be on the Silverstone track.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of the event as well, is being here being at the centre of racing in the UK is also a big part of their excitement. So yeah,
totally. Now, for the first time in the history of the competition, 2023 will see more entrants for the electric vehicles than any other engine type. That's right?
That is correct, yeah.
So, I mean, this is really reflecting some of the global impact of electric vehicles in the automotive industry. Do you think that this growth in the Formula Student sort of EV entries is reflecting the drive of young engineers to develop more sustainable credentials in their own working environment, but also, for the future of automotive industry?
I would say so, yes. I would say that the students want to build what they want to see on the roads.
Yeah.
And they also want to build what they potentially their future employers will want them to build. There's an element of Formula Student has to follow not only university curriculum, but also where industry is going. We don't want to put on an event that isn't relevant to where these students are headed. They're here to get that experience. They're here to speak to our sponsors, for example, for those graduate opportunities. There's that follow-on from Formula Student into their future career in motorsport. And so it's so important that, we as a committee and as the organisers put on an event that is relevant to their future.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think as well, Andrew, that this is something that the students are really going to want to focus on as part of their professional careers as well? That this move towards more sustainable engineering is really fundamental to knowledge base.
Yeah, absolutely. And the industry is here today as well, sponsoring the competition. And they're here partly because they want engineers of the future, and we're training those engineers who are going to have those skills to make the next generation of electric vehicles, to make the next generation of autonomous vehicles. So hopefully they'll get all those skills and early understanding from this competition and then take that into industry. And the sponsors on site today are here to recruit those young engineers who will become the leaders of the future.
Yeah.
And I guess one thing, going back to some of your previous questions, some of the engineers here are leading teams of 40 or 50 students. Normally, you're not until you're in your late 30s or 40s, you might not get expecting to have that sort of responsibility. You get that very early in your career if you do it for students, and then you take that experience forward to understand how to plan projects and all those sort of things, which is different to, you're just doing the simulation work day in, day out. It's a different perspective on engineering and all the things that go into make engineering projects successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that exposure, as we were talking before, suddenly they're trying out something that they wouldn't get any experience of until later in their career, and to be managing. I mean, some of the teams are like 60, 70 people strong, aren't they? I mean, they're absolutely huge teams. It's amazing. There's still a lot of interest though in the IC side of the competition. So what changes are you seeing in terms of IC technology to improve their competitive edge, for example, and also, again, the sustainability side of things? Is that playing a role in the design process, do you think?
There's some effort that students have to put into map the engines differently for the new fuels we've got on site. So we've got sustainable fuel for the teams if they want to use that this year, and in the future we'll make that mandatory to use 100% sustainable fuel as part of our the green and the way we want the technology to go in the competition. So that will change a little bit. But I think for me, the bit about the IC cars is it's a slightly easier thing to do because you can take an engine from a scrapyard, for example, and that will work. But you can still be a team of a project, maybe 20, 30 students working together to produce this complete vehicle.
Yeah.
And even electric vehicles still need the chassis engineering doing, and the brakes need to be there, and all these other things they're designing. So they can still go and do that career in making electric vehicles in the future, or one of our judges, he works at a nuclear power plant, and he said that 60% of the engineers, to be honest, 60% they take on as graduates come from Formula Student.
Oh, really?
So that they appreciate the skills that the engineers get here, which are transferable to all sorts of different industries.
Yeah,
which is a really, really great thing about what the project gives the students.
Yeah, I think you're right in terms of it's the opportunity to experience it, but to build up the confidence, those technical abilities that can be applied in any form of engineering. I mean, I started out in defence and that, that sort of thing. When I was 7, I wanted to build power stations. Okay, but my career has led me into healthcare. So it's about taking those fundamental engineering skills, isn't it, and applying them to the problem that you're trying to solve. And in this case, it's building a race car, but that can take you anywhere, really.
Absolutely, and those skills you learn for project planning. Obviously, in this case, the competition date never moves. So you've got an absolutely fixed deadline. You've got to work towards that. If you encounter problems along the way, you've got to solve those problems. Otherwise, you don't make it. And it's that sort of resourcefulness and challenges that they face along the way that really makes them become great engineers rather than just good at writing, solving equations and all that sort of stuff, which is what every student should be good at.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've got to understand, as we were talking to Ella earlier on, they've got to understand the fact that they have to produce a business plan, right, as well. So they're not just doing the actual hands-on engineering, but they have to understand at the end of the day, they've got stakeholders and they've got finances to deal with, and ultimately somebody who's got to hold the purse strings and say, no, you can't have that now. So how are you going to get around it? So that's a big part of the competition as well, isn't it, Naomi? The whole sort of aspect of the business side of it as well.
Yes, absolutely. We have our final, which is on the Saturday around lunchtime, and they actually present it. It's very much like the Apprentice final. They stand and present to our panel of judges. That's just for the few finalists that are left. And then we announce the winner at the awards ceremony. So there's a bit of a gap. They have to wait a bit to find out if they've won. Yeah. But it's an amazing experience. They get to present. Then they're asked questions afterwards about what they've said and what the judges have heard. And I think it's also the fact that even if you don't end up in an engineering career, you have that opportunity to, we spoke about project planning. Any of the skills you learn at Formula Student are useful for any career. Yeah. And I think that's what is amazing about it as well. And as somebody who's not an engineer, I think it's incredible that they get this opportunity to plan this, to plan this project and to, do their own marketing. They get their own sponsors. There's a lot of business side of it as well. There's a big business side of it as well.
No, it's fantastic to see them, stepping up to that kind of challenge. Now, I'm really excited about the FSAI class of vehicles. I've watched the videos online and it's just incredible to see these cars going around just on their own and quite terrifying slightly, not seeing a driver sitting in a chair in control of this vehicle. So how is this sort of being taken up by the student and was introduced back in 2019, right? So they've had a couple of years, I guess, a few years to kind of get used to it. Is it something the students are getting quite excited about? Are they really getting into this kind of new branch of the competition? And how are the challenges that they're facing? How are they reflected in the technical competencies of the competition?
I would say that the growth that we have seen this year has been incredible, and it's really shown us that they are taking it up. We have 20 teams on site for the FSAI competition this year, which is incredible. So out of those, we have 2 entry types. The first is the dedicated driving task, which is when the students use the word is quite long. It's the automated driving system dedicated vehicle, which is our purpose-built vehicle that we built. We built 2 of them, affectionately called Alice and Bob. And the teams design the computer system that then drives the car. And so we have 16 teams doing that this year, sharing those 2 vehicles. Right. And then we have 3 teams who are doing the automated driving system, which is when they've actually built their own driverless car. And they design the computer system that drives it. Okay, that's even an even bigger challenge. So I'm guessing some of the competitors will be entering first year to drive
your own vehicle with their own software, and then they'll kind of upgrade the following year maybe to build their own vehicle with that. Is that kind of how you envisage that working, Andrew?
That's why we introduced the ADS-DV as a short name for it, so they can take that and put the sensors on it and drive that vehicle around. And as they progress, they can then add those sensors and the knowledge from that to making the vehicle work as well themselves. So they've got to design the electric motor. Normally, an electric vehicle doing this, design the electric motors, the battery, and everything else, as well as the sensors. That's a much bigger job to do. So it's a stepping stone in. So I'm hoping next year we'll have 10 teams doing their own vehicle. But those 7 or 8 teams that move on from the ADS-DV class without using our vehicle, there'll be another 7 or 8 universities taking their places with that vehicle, so that whole category can continue to grow.
Yeah. Do you think at some point it will move completely into those classifications and we won't see any more IC over the next 25 years maybe? Or do you think the IC is still going to be a fundamental part of the competition?
I consider the IC being a fundamental part of the competition for probably the next 10 years, but we'll have to see where we go, what the legislation does. I think one of the challenges at the moment is that some of the teams, their universities will only fund them if they're doing green technology stuff, not the IC stuff. So, whereas I recognise that the learning is very similar from both, experience, but the impression it gives to outside people is much better from the EV stuff. So maybe in 10 years' time we'll move completely away from IC. We'll see how things go. And I guess the field of AI as well, that's also very strong. So how does the AI stuff get incorporated into this? The driver models and things like that. So I'm sure that will have an impact on the competition at some point in the future.
Absolutely. And maybe I'll bring this up with Dan actually later on, because I did have a brief conversation with him. We're going to be speaking to Dan Jones a little bit later, but it may be eventually remote control of some of these vehicles from simulations, a bit like you do in hospitals with robotic surgery. You know, they might be somewhere else in the world and the vehicle might be out on the track here. Hey, so it could be something in the future, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And something when we first talked about the AI class, we could have virtual obstacles suddenly appearing on the track, and the cars got to negotiate around that.
Yeah.
So that's an idea for the future, but you can only see that on your smart device, which shows you what the car sees on track, and make it a bit more random rather than just the same set of cones each time. So things like that could be introduced into the future to make it even more challenging.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think that is going to be something that'll be really awesome. Thank you to both of you for taking time out of your day. I really appreciate the time that you've spent with us. And I know I don't want to think there's any chaos happened out there while you've been with us, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of people looking for you. So Naomi and Andrew, thank you very much for joining us today. I am really, really pleased to be joined by members of UG Racing. Hi, guys.
Hi, nice to be here.
It's great to have you. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves because I wasn't quite sure who was going to be joining me. So we'll start at the back.
Yeah, so I'm Lucas. I'm the head of manufacturing and testing at UG Racing for this year.
And I'm Callum Wilson. I'm the head of mechanical systems this year and head engineer for the previous 2 years.
And you are last year's overall competition winners, right? Were you both in the team last year as well?
Yes.
All right, so there's a bit of pressure on then this year.
A little bit, yeah. We've made a big change this year.
So I have to actually say to our listeners, you didn't just win the overall competition, but you were the first Scottish team to win. Is that right? And the third UK team to win in the last 25 years. Yep. Does that do you feel there's a bit of pressure on there for you, or are you kind of taking that all as a bit of a chill?
Yeah, taking it as a bit of a chill.
I think it's chill. At the start of it, we were worried. Obviously, you're nervous. We made a big change going EV to come into this year, but I think now we've done our static events this morning, and we're feeling good about scrutineering. We're working really hard on the car. Everyone is. So yeah, it's calm. It's a good sort of environment, and we're just looking forward to doing what we can with our first EV entry after last year's success. Yeah.
If our listeners are not familiar with FS, and they might think, this is just really a competition about, engineering students tinkering with cars in a garage somewhere. But I mean, there's a lot more to it than that, isn't there? I've been talking with Naomi Rolfe just a few minutes ago, and how many students have you guys got in your team? Because I mean, this is a huge number of people taking part. There's not just a handful of you, is there?
Yeah, definitely. Our team's been growing massively over the past few years. When I joined 5 years ago, there was only 50 of us in the team, and now we're up at about 170, 180.
Goodness me.
But we've grown into a driverless team, an EV team. We had both an EV and a combustion last year, and an operations team. So
yeah, because I was gonna ask you about that. You know, last year you had an IC team, is that right? And an AI team. But you've decided to stop competing with the IC from this year on, haven't you? So what's made the team make that decision and that move over to the other classes?
Our plan was always to move over to EV at some point. So since we started EV development during COVID, we had a bit of a year off and sort of reset. We wanted to follow the direction of a lot of the teams in Europe and the competitions in Europe to move EV. And then after we came in 21, we got very close to being on the podium. We had to hang it out for one more year, and then thankfully won it. And then we thought that was a nice way to end the IC era.
I think going out on a high, right? I mean, it's the best way to do it. And then other people have got to kind of live up to your level. So that's really cool. So how has the team kind of taken that learnt experience from the IC side and moved over to the electric vehicle side? Is that been quite a challenge, or have the kind of base skills all kind of been there and you've been able to settle in quite easy?
Yeah, absolutely a massive challenge. You know, we've got a lot of talented people in the team, engineers to, you know, people from all disciplines, but the people actually working on the car themselves, there's still a lot of the base mechanical designs there, and there's a lot of really good people working hard on the car. And what we found most tricky was getting really talented people to come in and start to work on the EV and the EV powertrain and the accumulator. And it's such a massive learning curve for pretty much everyone in the team. So yeah, it would be very, very true to say that it's been a big challenge, but you know, we're here, we've got an accumulator, we've got a really nice EV powertrain, and we're happy with what we've got so far. So, you know, we've got people as we speak working on the accumulator, hopefully get it through scrutiny in the next few days. So massive challenge, but we're happy with the progress so far.
That's really good to hear. So how's today gone so far? Because obviously, you know, you've been here, well, I mean, I'm guessing you guys have been here all week, really, I suppose, but getting ready to come to the competition. How's today gone so far? What have you been doing?
You know, we've been working really hard for the past few months, but specifically the past 3 or 4 weeks, we've been in the garage every day, you know, all day, all night, making sure we can produce the best car we can. And it was really, really satisfying to come this morning and compete in the cost of manufacturing event and the design event this morning from 9 a.m. Callum and I were both in both of those events back to back, and we just came out and had a massive hug. We were so relieved that we'd managed to go through it to like the best as we could, and we thought we went really well. Similar to last year, we were really confident that we'll be able to, you know, hopefully get high placing finishes in those events again. And you know, we managed to get a good amount of preparation, and despite obviously building the whole car as well, so maybe not as much as we'd like, but there we go, we managed to get through it, and I'm pretty happy with how it went this morning.
Yeah. So what about you? Did it go quite well? It sounds like it was quite a stressful experience.
Yeah, I mean, we always leave our prep far too late, but we managed to get a good bit in last night in the campsite. And I mean, the one thing we have is that everyone designing the car knows the car inside out. So we know when we go into like custom design that we understand everything that's there and all the questions they're going to ask. And there's a few ones that stump us, but there always will be. That's the way it goes. But yeah, no, it was good.
Yeah.
It's relief.
So you've both been in the competition before, so you're fairly seasoned now. Are you going to be taking part next year, or is this your last year in the team?
This is my last year in the team. It's my 5th year in the team, and then I'm done.
Wow. Okay. So you graduate then next year?
I've just graduated. Summer, so,
right. Okay.
Off to work, and I'll miss it a lot. It's been good for the past 2 years, even with the COVID kind of era and a bit quieter. It's really nice to get back on the 25th anniversary and see so many cars, especially from across Europe as well, coming and competing. Yeah,
it's definitely a nice opportunity to see, you know, people you might have met before in previous years and sort of catch up with them and things. So you've obviously got another year or so to go.
Year, so I'm going into my 4th year, so I've got another 2 years hopefully. Being back here at Silverstone, so plenty more to give to the team and give to the competition hopefully.
That's excellent. What do you feel you're going to take away from this, for you personally? You know, having spent all of this time during your degree doing the competition, what do you feel you're going to take away with you?
I think within our degrees, there's never really the full practical application of our degree. So it's nice to actually design something from the very beginning and actually build it and then take it here and compete. From a design point, that's the best thing. And apart from that, met some great people along the way, helped some good teams.
I guess there's a lifelong camaraderie as well that you build up with the people you've got to know over the years, because there must be good times and bad times as well, and you kind of have to learn to manage that as well, don't you?
Yeah,
which is really cool. So where do you go next? Are you going to go into motorsport, or are you looking at going into?
I'm actually not. I've got a job working on offshore energy projects, so I've always done motorsport as a bit of a hobby, so I'm looking forward to keeping it in. I think the next step is to build another car. It's not a Formula 1 car. Something a bit faster and go racing.
Well, that sounds like a real great opportunity for, or maybe come back and, support and sponsor some of the students that are taking part this year or in the next 25 years, I suppose.
Yeah, and hopefully come back and help out. There's quite a few of our former people I was with in the team in the first years that are now design judges, scrutineers, cost judges.
Yeah.
I think that's,
Yeah, well, I think there's definitely a slot there for you, most definitely. So what are you hoping to achieve this coming week then? I mean, obviously going from overall competition winners, you've met that target, you've got that goal, that's ticked off, bucket list done. But clearly there are now challenges you need to build up with the new car. Where are you hoping to come, and what would be success for you this week?
Yeah, no, it's a new set of challenges, and it comes with a new mindset as well. It's been definitely a focal point to try and get the whole team into a different mindset of, okay, maybe we're not going to win this year, maybe we're not even going to get on track this year. You never know. We're aiming for that, but you never know. It's the first year we've done this, and it's the first year a lot of teams have done this, and it's a step into the unknown. So I'd say our overall goal is to pass scrutiny and get on track. You don't know how it's going to go. We've got a lot of talented people working on it, so we're still hopeful that could be the case. And I think for years to come, once we've got all the systems functioning together to optimize the car and build up again as we did with the IC for 10 plus years, we're basically now back at the start of where we were 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from that perspective, it's, we can all be proud of ourselves no matter what happens the next few days, I think is the thing to take away.
Yeah, well, I think hitting the 25th anniversary as seasoned winners, now you're setting the goal for the next 25 years for the next incoming University of Glasgow students to really set you've set the bar for them. So if you had an opportunity to encourage like the new incoming students at the university to come and take part, what would you say is the most enjoyable part of this, and what would you encourage them? Why would you encourage them to get involved?
Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, us as a team, we have a strong concept team. We tend to, every new member that joins our team, for instance, goes into concept class, and they get the opportunity to do design and cost and come here and experience being their own team. So even we've got people in first and second year of uni that are leading the team of there's about 10 of them here, but there's a team of like 30 of them. So having that experience to come and lead a team here, especially coming to Silverstone, seeing the cars, seeing what you're getting yourself into when you then move into the full FS class is a great opportunity. And then at uni, getting into the garage and actually designing something, then making it, seeing it in your hand and actually making it work.
Yeah, there's nothing better than just getting a piece of equipment in your hands and actually having a real play with it. Is that it shows you a completely different place than being in the classroom. And I miss that opportunity. I enjoy getting my hands dirty too. So I'm quite envious when I walk down the pit lane, seeing you guys all under the cars. It's great. But Callum, Lucas, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I am going to keep my fingers crossed for you. I hope you do really well. I hope that the next few days are really successful for you. I look forward to seeing the new car out on the track, and good luck for the future as well, guys.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
I'm really pleased to have Dan Jones, who is the FS Chief Judge, joining me now remotely from down the road at Williams today for Formula Simulation Racing. Dan, it's really good to have you on the show. How are things going down at Williams?
Yeah, very good. So we recently announced our partnership with Williams Esports for our sim race series. It started from running from my bedroom 4 years ago. And I never imagined, well, I dreamed, but never imagined that we get to running the event in such world-class facilities in such a short period of time. So we're setting up, getting ready for the students to arrive tomorrow. All the media stuff set up for the stream, and we're once we're finished on the podcast here, we'll be having a bit of a test race, and then we're buttoned up, ready to go tomorrow.
That's fantastic. I know how passionate you are about the sim racing competition, and tell us a little bit about it, because it's the newest addition to the Formula Student competition offering, isn't it? So what's the history behind it? You've intimated a little bit there about where it kind of got its roots, but tell us a little bit about the competition.
So March 2020, when all of us had difficult times, difficult decisions to make, we as the Formula Student Organising Committee, we could have cancelled the live event planned for the summer completely. But I knew that the organising committee, we wouldn't just do that. We came up with the best we could, which was a fully virtual event. We did the normal static events over Teams, so teams could still get to practice, do their actual design, cost and business judging that they'd been preparing for. But then the dynamic events, we replaced those with a combination of lap time simulation, which was a computer exercise and then a paper submission. And then we did 2 days of sim racing, which basically I spent the first month and a half, 2 months of lockdown for me was getting ready for that competition from scratch. So it was hosted racing on a server, and all the teams logging in from the server from their homes all around the UK and around the world that joined us. And that's for 2020. That was our dynamic events. We had a day of heats, which people start in different positions on the grid, different cars that were racing. And then on the Sunday we had finals, a bit like radio controlled car racing or karting, where you have a D final, a C final, a B final before the grand finale. It was a lot of work to get it ready, and we had a test race a week before, and that didn't go well at all. But that's why you test. We solved all the issues, and it went fantastically well. And afterwards we reflected on it and said, We've got something too good here to not do anything, not to just park it. So we started. The next year we had a hybrid event. It was half live, half remote, and we offered sim racing again for the teams who couldn't attend live. And then from 2022 was the first year of the sim race series, which starts in October, and we host a monthly race for the teams, all leading up to a live final. Last year we hosted the final at Silverstone, and now we have this new partnership with Williams Esports. We're in the fortunate position we can use their world-class facilities, which everyone's going to get to see on the YouTube stream tomorrow. And it's a fantastic facility.
Yeah, I was talking earlier to Naomi and Andrew, and talking about the watching the video, actually, that because you do it all on Twitch, don't you, and through that service.
So we use Discord for communicating with the teams. All of our documentation and pre-event communication is done on Discord, and then we stream on YouTube. But it could be on Twitch, could be on YouTube, or similar platforms like that. And the teams for the monthly races before we do the live final, then it's similar to how we ran it in 2020. That it's a remote server. We host a camera car from there for the stream, for the broadcast and for the commentary. But all the teams are remoting in from either their homes, or some of them have sim rigs in their university facilities. And they're racing from there. And it's, the graphics are good. You can tell that it's not real, but it's close. And the racing's been, it was fantastic last year, and it's been fantastic again this year.
Well, I mean, I'm just an old person who has no skill when it comes to playing racing games or anything like that. But to see the young engineers, taking part in this competition, who've grown up with these kind of games and things in their social lives, to be able to then be taking part in a competition, they must get a real buzz out of that. And especially being able to take part from all over the world, I think it's an amazing opportunity. What do you think taking part in the sim racing brings to the students' understanding of the motorsport industry, and why is virtual racing so useful to motorsport companies themselves?
So there are many esports competitions out there already, and there are people who race in esports now for a living. There's not many, but there are people who make a comfortable living from doing it. Williams themselves are a prime example of where they've recognised that they can use their esports team to train young engineers in how to do race engineering, of reviewing data, developing setups and everything else. And that's why there was just the obvious synergy for the partnership that we formed with them. Because for our series, there is the racing and it's the fun element, and they get to drive and compete against each other. But with it being Formula Student, we always wanted to make sure there was still the engineering education aspect to it. And so this year, as well as the monthly races, we've been setting what we call engineering side challenges. And so for each side challenge, there was a brief of take this car, drive it at this track, and they had to work through either doing aerodynamic mapping or looking at the influence of the dampers. And, F1 teams themselves all have simulators. They'll use them over a race weekend, ahead of the race weekend to develop setups, and then over the race weekend to try and refine the setup, because there's so little on-track time now at racing. Yeah. And it's all the tools that are used, it might not be the exact tool that's used in the individual F1 teams, but it is the software spits out the same data, so the speed of the car, the position of the dampers, the tyre temperatures, the tyre pressures, everything that you'd get to see from a data trace if you're at a real circuit, you get from the software. And so it's the same as Formula Student itself. It's a chance for the students who are getting involved to hone and practice those skills that will then make them more employable to prospective employers.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the data that must be collected from that kind of process, I mean, that's something that not just motorsport industries, but many engineering industries now are wanting to understand how they can interpret data and use data to make simulations and predict performance. Do the students get access to kind of that background data, or is that not really part of the arrangement right now? But is it something that perhaps in the future they'd be able to use and explore as well as part of the competition?
No, absolutely is. So that's what. Within the side challenges, they get the brief of go and perform this activity on the track, develop the setup. But then there's a one-page A4 paper submission, and that's where they're using the telemetry from running the car, and they have to, in one page, with the use of graphs taken from the data logger, explain what they did, why they did it, what the outcome was, and what was surprising, or what would they do differently if they did it again. And so it exactly replicates what they would be doing, either if it was race engineering on a car, or, as you say, there's in the broad spectrum of engineering, there are now so many products or rigs or facilities out there, they're smothered in sensors. And the challenge in the data is you've got so much, is one, what are you looking for in the first place? And then when you go and looking at the right stuff, what does it actually mean? What do you need to do to interpret it and learn something to make a change, to fix a reliability problem or improve how the car drives, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds a fantastic opportunity to take real world scenarios, but in a kind of fun way, really.
And again, it's the analog to Formula Student is there. The hook for Formula Student is designing and building a racing car, but along that journey, there's all of the educational aspects, the putting your engineering skills into practice, but then all of the soft skills as well. And it's the same. So it's teaching them how to collaborate. So most of the teams, they'll have a roster of drivers, but they also have people who are helping them on the race engineering side to develop setups. And so, there's just countless examples where it is putting those skills into practice.
That's amazing. Now, we couldn't really talk about the sim racing without, as you've already mentioned, the partnership with Williams Esports. What value does this kind of partnering bring to the competition as a whole, but also to partners such as Williams? What do they benefit from this?
So their interest in partnering with us at Formula Student is, first and foremost, they're just interested in promoting the Williams brand, getting it out to more people. Williams used to run a competition for Young Engineer of the Year, and last year they've changed it. And it now has a large virtual element. And so it was another obvious synergy of where they get the chance to get more people who are in the esports environment, doing using the software, supporting the race engineering. And so we're hopefully going to try and in next year's series make a prize where for people who stand out that they get a guaranteed interview for a placement or something like that, working with Williams on their esports team. And for us, it started in 2020 of running out of our bedrooms or our offices from what we all did at home virtually, and then we've just built upon that. But it's a dedicated team of volunteers in a minimal budget that we spend from the IMechE side, and we never could have put in place the facilities that we've now got access to with the partnership with Williams. The level of investment required on the side from the IMechE would be too large. And so hosting the live final this year is just kind of the first stepping stone. Next year for the 2024 Sim Race series, they have a dedicated broadcast facility here. And so rather than us doing the broadcast and commentating from home over the top of it, there's a studio where we'll be able to do the broadcast from. It's just the level of professionalism is going to take a step up. And then they have full-time employees who they're already supporting on the engineering side challenges, but we'll be able to grow those in kind of the depth and complexity of those with having that additional manpower to or person power, I should say, to support the activity.
It sounds incredible, the work that you've done, Dan, to get this off, and I can hear the passion in your voice for this competition. Obviously, we're going to see more of sim racing, and you've just alluded to some of that in terms of what's going to happen next year and being able to broadcast this more widely. What are your aspirations for this series, looking ahead to the next 25 years of Formula Student?
So I just want to see it grow and grow, and that fits in with Stephen English's, so he's the director of Williams Esport, his vision as well. So they're passionate about trying to get a sim rig in every school and getting people to young kids engaged with sim racing as a hook for getting engaged with motorsport from the start. And for the sim race series, we open it up to all FS teams from around the world. It's not just those registered for Formula Student in the UK at the competition in July. And it's also open to FS alumni. So if people who have finished Formula Student itself, they're graduated out in industry, but they still want to stay engaged with the community, then they're welcome to enter a team into the sim race series. I think we had nearly 40 teams register for the start of the series this year. That whittled down to probably high 20s, low 30s who are regularly competing month on month. And that was probably double what we had last year. And so, if we have 60, 70, 80 teams who sign up for the series in 2024, and then it could just grow massively from there. And then it might turn out that we do more than one live event here at Williams per year. And my ultimate dream, but I'm not sure how we get there. But now we've ticked off this one that I wasn't sure where we were going to get to, is to be able to recreate the Formula Student event itself virtually. So
Wow.
we'd like to. The challenge with recreating a Formula Student car digitally is it's quite easy for people to cheat or to bend the rules, because ultimately it's code that's representing the car. And in those many lines of code, you could change that the downforce has got a multiplier on it, or the tyre grit's got a multiplier on it. Well, I'm not saying that students would be dishonest, but in a competitive environment, when all you've got to do is change a few ones and zeros. So we need to try and work out how we can get a platform that is that allows teams to develop the car, but within some constraints, and where you don't just put the most powerful engine, the highest downforce and everything to go quick, but trying to develop and put even more of the engineering aspects into it is kind of is the dream of where I'd like it to end up.
That sounds an amazing, not only a big challenge for you, but an amazing dream. And I hope that comes to fruition, Dan, because this sounds like it's got so many opportunities for students to take part. And I love the idea of alums coming back and maybe taking part. Maybe you should challenge some of the judges to put a team together. That sounds to me like, an all-star kind of team that could be the competitive sort of standard to aim for.
Well, honestly, there's some of the drivers in the teams already. So I'm an avid sim racer myself. Monty, who's the event captain, he is as well. And Monty's very good. I'm almost as good as Monty, but not quite. He'll definitely beat me. But so there's a few guys from last year and then similarly this year, and they are nearly world-class level drivers already of what we're seeing. But the 2020 we did some fun races where we had all the judges remoting in and doing that as well, and that was it was entertaining but carnage at the same time.
I can imagine the carnage, and I think next time that needs to be filmed so we can all watch it. Dan, thank you ever so much for joining me today. I know you've got a lot of preparation to do ready for the competition tomorrow. It's been great to talk to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
I've just been joined now by some more of my guests. I'm very pleased to have one of the longest serving FS partners with us here today in the studio, Sam Reinsel. Sam, it's great for you to join us on the show. You're Education Technical Lead for Student Competitions, is that right? That's your full title. Mm-hmm. And I know Helen's hiding around the corner, but she's the Global Marketing Specialist, and you're both from MathWorks. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
To the podcast. FS is obviously an important aspect of MathWorks' educational engagements. So what makes your company want to be part of something like FS and engage in this kind of educational side of the competition?
Yeah, so education has been kind of a huge part of MathWorks since the very first version of MATLAB was made. It was called Matrix Laboratory when it was created by Cleve, who was the founder of MathWorks. And he originally made it to help teach linear algebra and matrix math back when all of the programming was done in Fortran, which was not an easy language.
Nope.
So he wrote it basically to help teach. And so even as we work with a lot of commercial customers, we know it's really important to kind of show how the software can be used, not just for like normal coursework, but education programs like Formula and other student competitions that we support are really a chance to use that in a way that you don't get to in a classroom. So we know it's really important for the students to not just solve problems like Formula Student that are really complicated, but use tools that are used in industry for the same purposes.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in the day, and I'm going back a long time now, I remember using, MathWorks and blew my mind that we could do all this stuff on computers. It was a very long time ago, right? But yeah, I mean, that technology has obviously moved on in leaps and bounds. And the some of the things that you're able to do now are just beyond the very basic. I remember using Fortran. I did my entire PhD actually in Fortran. That kind of side of things is obviously, far exceeded those early days of the software development. Sam, as a mechanical engineer yourself, you kind of really understand the mathematical modelling and the real vital role that this plays in designing not just of high performance vehicles, but obviously, Formula Student vehicles as well. So how does the MathsWorks software help students in the competition and going beyond that into their kind of work environment? What do they kind of get from it, having used it here in the competition?
Yeah, so on the one hand, just even having used MATLAB and Simulink to solve complicated problems, the same way that a lot of engineering companies do is already like a huge leg up over somebody who just took courses and didn't participate in a project like this. But like across the industry, whether it's automotive or aerospace, medical devices, stuff like that, we rely on models a lot to justify design decisions because you can't wait until you have a physical prototype. You really need to be able to say, this is a good design, this is maybe not as good of a design or a bad one, based on engineering first principles and really going back and taking a modeling approach. So like when I was a student, we had a course where we did some system dynamics stuff. We learned how to break down the system into equations, what assumptions we were making, stuff like that, and working out how the system would respond. But they were always really small, simplified examples that we could control everything for, and we didn't have to worry about the real world. It was ideal conditions. So having to actually try and build a more sophisticated model and processing like piles of data that you get from your data logger or something like that, or doing a test in a lab, right? Like you have a component on a bench and you're running tests to understand its behavior. Doing that sort of stuff is much more what you end up doing once you're in industry, and you need a broader understanding of not just how the one thing you're trying to model works, but how your entire system as a whole is going to work. So the goal with MATLAB and Simulink is really to make building models like that easy and to let you iterate rapidly, because it's not just enough to build a model. You have to, every model you have to check that it actually is valid and it matches your real system. And so being able to build a model, check it against real data or data you have from the car and see, the performance is a little different. Let me tweak some stuff, build a slightly different model. That sort of stuff. What assumptions are okay to make? What impact would it have? That sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity to be able to refine, I think, is the key here, isn't it? Back in the day, you had to build your prototype and test it. You didn't have those kind of tools. Now the students are able to spend most of that time doing those bench tests, if you like, that modelling side of things before they even build a car or a piece of a car. So I guess there's an opportunity for the students to really understand the data, the numerical part of what goes into the car itself, and actually see it on the screen before they even get to that point. And that's a great opportunity for the students. So do many of the teams use this kind of software in their preparation for coming here? And are you involved in helping them kind of understand how to use the tools?
Yeah, so my entire team that works on student competitions, we're here as a resource to the students, as well as trying to help figure out what content should we make, like training content, stuff like that. But a lot of teams that we've spoken to here, and I was at the Italy event last week as well. So at all these events, the teams that have been here a while, maybe not so much the newer teams, because they're trying to get to grips with how do you build a successful car and a successful team. But when you're working on your third design or your fourth design that your university has done, understanding how to take data that you've collected before and build a model to help you build a better car this time, right? So like I remember, I was speaking to a team. I forget which university it was, unfortunately. But last year there was a team that had like battery overheating issues, and so they weren't really able to complete endurance because they just hadn't accounted for the fact that it was going to be a lot hotter outside last year.
Yeah.
And so one of the things they took away from that was that they were going to build a thermal model for their battery and try to understand, well, we're building a new car, we're building a new battery pack. We have to make sure that if this happens again next year, that we've taken into account that we can't assume it's going to be, 20 degrees and, nice and sunny, that it might be really hot and that we might not be able to cool the battery effectively if we don't design it right.
Yeah. And I guess there's great opportunities, I think, there for the students to do more than just look at the model of the car itself. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people who probably are listening to the show or, assume that when you're talking about modelling, that you're modelling the whole car. And this is not the case, as you've just highlighted there. The component level modelling is just as important, isn't it, to overcome sustainability issues, climate change, all of these things which the students need to understand their wider environment, not just the vehicle that they're designing. And that can be quite an eye-opener, I think, to a lot of students.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to Oxford Brookes a little bit ago, and they do the whole code generation workflow. So they test all of their software in Simulink, where they've written it in Simulink blocks. They can run the software they're writing that's going to actually control their car against a model of the vehicle, and do like edge cases or things that would be unsafe to test with a real system. But they can test all of that in simulation really rapidly. And so when they need to make a change to their code or something, they can make a change, run it in simulation, and then automatically generate a C code that gets deployed to their controller. So all of their controls engineers, their mechanical engineers, don't have to know how to write C code directly, because the same system that they use in Simulink to model their vehicle, they also use to actually write the software of the controller.
That's amazing. Now, we were talking earlier with some of our other guests about the AI and the autonomous vehicles. What role will modelling and simulation play in the future, not just here at Formula Student, but in the future of the motorsport industry itself, particularly around sort of the AI aspect of it? Yeah,
so pretty much every motorsport team now already has simulations that they run, right? But a big part of it is so that their drivers can, run a simulation lap to try and test setups, right? But I think a big thing, especially in motorsport, is that if you can, rather than have your driver sit down and do 20 laps with 20 different setups to try and understand, next weekend what the right setup for the car is going to be, if you could train an AI model that is very specifically trained after your driver's driving characteristics, right? Yeah. How they turn into a corner, how they let off the brake as they come through the apex and stuff like that. So it's not like a general model or a mathematical model or a really simple PID or something. It's actually trained on how your driver drives your car, and then you can test a bunch of setups using that. Or you might be building a new model for your system, and you might use AI to actually, or classic machine learning stuff too, to kind of fit the model to real data that you're seeing. So you're not working out the equation yourself. You're sort of letting a trained model loose on trying to fit these parameters, right? That sort of stuff I think is going to become a much bigger deal, and it's going to be used a lot more as it's easier and easier to build a one-off model, right? So you don't have to be on the cutting edge of machine learning to build something. And we have a lot of tools for machine learning in MATLAB and Simulink that you can use with models. But I think in motorsport, that's where it's probably going to start to really be used. With autonomous, a big part of it is you can't possibly cover every edge case in a real world test. So with autonomous vehicles, whether it's a race car or a road car, it's all about like you can do 1 million miles of testing purely in simulation without having to ever get a car on the road with all your software set up.
Yeah, no, it seems really exciting and slightly frightening that we could see AI actually doing the simulation to create simulation. I just, that kind of blows my mind. I'm an old school, tools in hand kind of girl. So, bit nervous about that one, but it sounds incredibly exciting. Sam, thank you for talking through what is a really fascinating part of this whole process of developing not just Formula Student cars, but the wider aspect of motorsport. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's great. Thank you. I am very pleased to be joined in the studio now by Christian Dix. Thank you so much for joining me, Christian.
Pleasure.
You are not only a Formula Student alum from Cardiff Racing, yes, I believe, 2017 to 2020, but you're also a satellite communications systems engineer for Babcock International. And Babcock International are one of the competition sponsor, I believe, for Formula Student AI. It's great to have you on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we were talking in the paddock, weren't we, earlier, yes, about, because you've got a great big display. Go on, tell us what you've got on your stand down in the paddock.
Yes, so we've got quite a lot there. Obviously trying to fit with the theme of AI. So we've got a few drones, a few ROVs, and we've also got some like VR headsets as well. And I think the main theme we're trying to get across is, this is the kind of exciting things that we're doing. We want to try and encourage the students to come over, have a look, have a conversation, and hopefully, if they're interested in it, just show them what Babcock can offer them as a career.
Yeah, I have to say the drone that you've got down there is about the size of a dining table. Yes. It's absolutely huge. What sort of things are you using that for, or is it just really for demonstration?
So that in particular, it is mainly for like site surveys. So it will take a lot of pictures, and one of the examples that we have on the stand is of one of our offices. So it'll be about 10,000 images, and then it will stitch it together and then produce a 3D model.
Oh, wow.
So you can see that on the stand if you want to go have a look later today. It's really impressive. It's really high resolution. So you can kind of zoom in on certain areas, and it's really good for surveying. Along with that, we also have drones that can go into confined spaces as well. So we have smaller drones. So it's that part of the business is looking more at surveys, and it's really, really impressive stuff.
Yeah, it was. I was all for kind of just, swiping that. If it hadn't have been so big, I would have kind of, seen if I could wander off with it. I'm sure you would have chased after me. Christian, just going back a little ways to your experiences of being at Formula Student, what memories do you have of taking part? It's not that long ago, really,
no,
is it? Really, but have you had a chance to go and pop and see Cardiff as well and kind of give them a cheer on?
Yeah, absolutely. So very fond memories of Formula Student. So I actually was studying history at Cardiff and then went into engineering.
Wow.
So Formula Student really opened the doors to kind of what the events can be like, what I could be part of, what I can be creating, and then seeing it around Silverstone is obviously an incredible experience. I've seen the Cardiff team. Their car looks really, really good this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing it on the track on the weekend, giving them my personal cheer, but also to the other teams as well. A lot of their cars are really impressive, and it's really cool to see a lot of the international students coming back as well.
Yeah. Several people have said that today, actually.
Yeah.
It's just great to see so many of the international teams here and having them competing again. We've really missed them.
Yes.
At the competition. They bring so much to this event. And I know, going back to what you were saying, we were out in the paddock earlier, and it's so difficult to not go to your university and kind of go and do a little cheerleading kind of dance in front of them. But, we have to be as neutral as possible and wish everybody the best of luck. But I'm giving a shout out to Loughborough now.
I'm in Cardiff.
Yeah, okay. And I'll whisper for University of Leicester because Saeed's in the corner there as well, so it's good. Now, I know Babcock pretty well. We had a chat earlier this week, didn't we? And because I used to work for them back in my day, my very early career. And I know that they've got a long history, obviously, of heavy engineering. That's, and that's certainly the defence side where I was based, particularly ships and submarines. So why has the company got interested in artificial intelligence and autonomous vehicles particularly? And what's kind of brought them to sponsor this event?
Yeah, so AI and autonomous systems is a really big growing part of our business. So what we are looking for is the kind of what students are doing, how excited they are to be here, and it's a key part of our technological approach. We cover 4 areas in Babcock, so it's aviation, land, nuclear, and marine, and we've also just recently got a contract for a space program as well with satellites. Hence my job as a system engineer. So what we're looking for is AI technologies to cut across these areas as they're really of interest to us. That's a bit about AI.
As I say, knowing the history of Babcock and where it comes from and that long history of shipbuilding and submarines and aircraft carriers and all of that, it really is, a challenge now, isn't it, for businesses of that type to be moving into this kind of area. Is it something, do you think, that a lot more companies are wanting to get involved in, and bringing on engineers like yourself who come from sort of that comms, that satellite side of things into the more traditional engineering? It's kind of melding all these things together, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's not only within engineering, but it's also across so many different companies. We've had the rise of ChatGPT. That's quite in the headlines. It's becoming quite public knowledge now about AI, what it can offer and what people can use it for to kind of achieve not only in industry and engineering, but retail or wherever it is. Yeah. AI, especially for our systems, as you say, we're a really large engineering company and we do a lot of different work, and a main part of it is integrating the work, trying to make sure that everyone's aligned on the same approach, and that knowledge transfer as well across the businesses is the best that it can be.
Yeah. I'm really quite excited to see how the AI side of this, and particularly the autonomous vehicle side, develops, I think, in the coming years. And it's clear that you as a company and you as an engineer are really excited about seeing how this is going to play out for the next 25 years of Formula Student, which is great. Now, we're obviously talking about the AI side of things. Now, there are 2 classes of AI, as I understand it: the automated driving systems, the ADS, and the dynamic driving tasks, which is the DDT. Can you tell us a little bit about those 2 aspects and what the judges are actually kind of looking for in the competition?
Yeah, sure. So ADS, or automated driving systems, it's like a self-driving car that manages all systems of the vehicles, whether it's flying, driving, or swimming, or in this case, at this event, it's driving. And then you also have the dynamic driving tasks. So this is where you're given it a very complex driving task to undertake, where it's using all the sensors to navigate. I think that one's a particularly difficult one. So and that's what's quite impressive about the AI cars is physically they look the same, but underneath that on the software side, it is incredible what the teams are coming out with year on year.
I haven't been and had a look at what they're doing. All I see is a lot of computers out on desks and a lot of people typing away, very, very focused. I mean, are you getting involved in sort of guiding them and helping them to understand the task in hand, how to manipulate these vehicles and how to interpret the coding? Is that something that you are getting involved in?
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely something we want to try and continue as we go forward with the sponsorship. And we had, it was University of Oxford Brookes at the stand yesterday. So they went through their presentation of their system, what they're doing with it. And it was really, really impressive. And one of the things in particular that I thought was such a good thing to see on the academia side is the transfer of knowledge. So what they chose were software that may not be particularly, well, they're very good across the table anyway, but what they were trying to target was for the new engineers coming in first year, second years, is can they pick up and learn that software quickly so then they can continue the development and the delivery of that car. And I thought that transfer of knowledge and that kind of sustainability aspect within the AI was really impressive to see from the team.
Yeah. We've talked about Oxford Books quite a lot today.
Yeah.
Actually, they've got mentioned quite a lot. I hope they're appreciating the big up that they're getting today. Earlier on, I actually had the University of Glasgow in as well. They're last year's team winners, and they have decided, having won the competition overall, now that they're going to step away from the IC and move into the electric vehicle side and the AI side. Do you think it's a challenge for the students to bring on teams into these new kind of classes? And also, do you think this is the way that engineering is moving now, that we're not just mechanical engineers who build things like IC cars, but we are actually becoming multidisciplinary engineers in the way that we work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we've seen that it's a common theme this year and last year, where a lot of teams are making that transfer, and it is incredibly difficult. And I think that's something that, as you say, it's for industrial engineering, a mechanical engineer, it's invaluable to know about electrical engineering, about software engineering, systems engineering. So be able to be that multidisciplinary engineer is becoming more and more valuable as systems get more and more complex.
Yeah. It certainly seems that the young engineers coming through today are gaining a much broader set of skills and knowledge and coming to the table with a whole plethora of experience that perhaps back in my day, when I first started, when I was sitting in their position, that you just didn't get that. You were in your little niche kind of thing. So it's wonderful to see how that's coming into the competition as well. So as the first sponsors of the AI competition, what do you think Babcock will gain from employing the kinds of engineers that we've just been talking about, those that are coming out with not just the AI knowledge, but the systems approach to problem solving? What benefit does it bring to the company?
Yeah, so I think Formula Student, one of the things it does incredibly well is it bridges that gap from academia to industry. So having the kind of hands-on experience, the part that you may not learn about in the lecture theatre, that's what ultimately I think gives it the valuable part. And one thing, again, incredible about Formula Student is a lot of the students are here in their spare time. University's finished for them, they've done their exams, but you can see the passion and enthusiasm that they have. They want to be here, they want to be working on the cars. And that kind of attitude is what we're looking for in Babcock. People who just really live and breathe engineering, they really enjoy it. And also enjoy the teamwork that goes with it, because there's a lot of camaraderie. A lot of the teams are, they just have a great atmosphere about them.
Yeah, we were talking earlier today about it being a community.
Absolutely.
It is, and it doesn't matter what engineering field that you go into later on, it is that camaraderie, that community spirit that you build on. You keep those contacts, don't you, throughout? I'm sure you still keep in touch with some of the guys who were in your team as
Definitely.
well, which so that leads me on to quite a nice kind of last question, I suppose, which is, if you had that chance to compete in Formula Student again, what aspects of it would you want to take part in and be involved in, and what would you say to some of the young students or young engineers who might be listening who want to come into Formula Student?
Yeah, great question. So I think the first part, what I would like out of Formula Student, so I'm biased, so I did aerodynamics for the car and I fell in love with it. It looks really cool, and just doing the CFD on it, for me, it just added so much to my degree. As that was part of my dissertation. And I think an advice that I would potentially give to the young engineers is to really just get stuck into it. Really just live and breathe it and rely on your academics, your fellow students, the technicians, because the amount of knowledge that these people have, and they're so willing to give it. And even other teams as well. I really like seeing teams kind of collaborate, sharing tools or knowledge, or whatever it is. It's just relying on those people and setting up that network that just will inevitably help you in your career.
Yeah. You make a good point there, because the number of times you see teams actually going and helping out other teams, there is a competitiveness, a massive competitiveness in those pits down there. But when it comes to issues and problems, the number of times I've seen other students go across and help another team, it's just wonderful to see. And there's so much passion there that it's great to see that. Christian, thank you ever so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show and to hear about this incredible new part of the competition and how Babcock have got involved. So thanks for joining me.
Brilliant. Thank you for being here.
All right. Cheers. My next guest is the World Academic Sales Director for ANSYS.
Thank you very much. My name is Gilles Genspieler, and I'm the Worldwide Sales Academic for ANSYS.
That's okay.
And it's a pleasure being here.
It's wonderful to have you guys to come and talk to us on the podcast. So thank you ever so much for joining us. I wanted to start by sort of talking a little bit about ANSYS themselves, because you are one of the main sponsors for Formula Student. Simulation technology is likely to be familiar to most engineers, right? I mean, it's something that we use in our everyday environment, but probably not so much to people beyond that, I guess. Why does ANSYS as a company feel the need to be involved with a student level competition such as Formula Student, and what aspect of that, what helps the students to understand why modelling is so important?
So that's a very good question. The key reason why we actually work with the student very carefully, it's very closely, it's because our clients are requesting it. Right. So the problem is that simulation is used more and more in the industry, but they have a problem recruiting enough students trained in simulation. Yes. And they're basically saying it's taking a lot of time for us to train them from ground zero. Let's make sure that the students actually know how to use ANSYS and start learning it directly in their classes. So that's the first reason. So we're here because we support the student team, but it's not only about getting them access to the software. We developed a full range of material for them to be able to access the software. So they have the software. Next step, making sure they can get training. And we developed a full series of training just for student team, but also outside of student team for the student that are like, hey, I want to know even more. I want to know about nuclear engineering and simulation, aerospace and simulation, etc., etc. And the last step we did as well is to have certification available for the student. And that's really a lot of time where we do the handshake between the students and the company. If a student is really motivated in simulation, he can take the certification, which means not only does he have the skill, does he or she have the skills on a resume, but then if he or she is certified, the company can say, hey, this student is very good, they're certified in ANSYS, so we should definitely hire them. So that's the main responsibility, but also the second responsibility is a company. I think we have to make everyone successful, and the students are completely part of that. So that's one of the reasons why we're here. I mean, I'm just, this is the third event I do in 3 months. Oh, okay. I've done 2 in Michigan as well, the IC one and the EV one. And I just think those are the smartest students that there is. What they're designing, how they work in team is just impressive.
Yeah, I mean, being able to travel and see some of the other competitions as well as obviously taking part in Formula Student, it must be really quite exciting from your point of view to see how the students bring all of this stuff to the table and actually present a vehicle which they can get out on the track knowing that they've been able to simulate it and model it before they've even built a vehicle. So how is the American competition different to Formula Student, or is it a very similar kind of?
The format are very similar.
Yeah,
the format are very similar.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, one of the key elements of Formula Student is the engineering design part, the competition, where the students need to demonstrate the processes that went into developing the vehicle and whether the vehicle met its original design intent. Clearly, modelling and simulation plays an important role in that aspect of the competition. How does applying that kind of software and the sort of CFD and the computer-aided engineering provide a competitive edge to the students, do you think?
So that's a very good question again. And if you ask students, usually the first thing they come up with is they're going to use virtual prototyping to save time and money. And basically the idea, you're not going to just design a car the way you think and going to test it and there's what's work, what doesn't work, and build a car from all over again, right? Yeah. So simulation, it's all about basically virtual prototyping, testing your design in a virtual fashion, which is much faster and much cheaper than doing just physical prototyping. However, that being said, there are other advantages I want to talk about. And I was thinking about it. I thought about 4 key areas: performance, improving reliability, improving safety, and also innovate. So if I can expand a little bit, if I think about performance, one good idea, one good example would be aerodynamic. Let's look at how to design the aerodynamic package the best, that the car has the most downforce, the best aerodynamic, etc. Another area of performance, there's a lot going on topology optimization and 3D printing. How can we use that to design the parts and test the part before printing them to make sure they meet all the requirements? And we can actually build that. So usually when you talk about topology optimization, you're talking about reduced weight. So that's for the performance. But let's go to the reliability as well. There is a lot. I'm going to use another example for an EV car, for example. We all know that the car that are running here, if they get too hot, they basically completely shut down. So the students simulate the behavior of the battery, the thermal management, making sure the PCB don't get too warm, etc. So that's more on the reliability point of view. I was also talking about safety. Safety, very easy example, crash test.
Yeah.
You want to do them virtually because you're not going to build a car, no. Crash it, and then say, well, it actually passed, but now that we crash it, we have to rebuild another one. That's another example. So safety. And the last point, which I always want to make sure students are aware of, is innovation. A student can come up with a completely new, innovative, but untested idea. Guess what? No one is going to build it first because it may be innovative, may sound a good idea, but it's untested. Simulation is great to do the simulation where you have an idea, just test it virtually. Maybe an excellent idea in the next one, which we have the simulation, and the student can say, oh yes, it's innovative, but we tested it virtually, we're going to build it. Or can also say, hey, you know what, next idea, maybe was not a good one. So those are the 4 key points I wanted to highlight.
Yeah, no, that you make some very good points there. And I think that's really key to this whole process, really, isn't it? To think through each of those stages and be able to apply the technology to make those simulations, like you say, before they build anything and crash it, because that's the worst thing. Now, it's been 25 years since Formula Student began. Modelling and simulation has changed out of all proportions. Certainly in my lifetime as an engineer, it's well, I think it was introduced when I first, I'm feeling that old. But I remember FEA software first coming in as a student and back in the 90s thinking it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen, and you could do all of this really cool stuff, and I worked on turbochargers to use it for modelling. What kind of simulation technology are we going to be seeing emerge over the next 25 years of Formula Student, and how might that impact on the next generation of students taking part in the competition?
So same thing when I was thinking about that. The first thing I think where we're going to see a lot of changes, the students and FSA in general, they use a lot of fluid dynamics, aerodynamics and everything, and also structural dynamics. I think the next frontier is going to be related to all the electromagnetics type of simulation. So as I see it, as I talk a lot to the EV teams, and a lot of teams are also going electric, you have a lot of new problem, which is battery cooling. So that's thermal management. They have a lot of problem of designing circuits and PCB that are reliable enough. All that can be simulated. They also discuss a lot problem of electromagnetic interference, which that also can be simulated. So I think there is a whole new range of application that is opening for students to use those technology. So that would be the near future, I would say. If I look a little bit after, there's a few self-driving cars here as well. Yeah. Self-driving is also a new frontier of simulation. And basically, I don't remember the exact number, but the idea is if you want to develop a self-driving car or pretty autonomous driving cars, there's so many miles you need to do to validate it that you cannot physically do that. So you do virtual validation of the car. And also all the technology related to AI and machine learning, artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's all great to use more simulation, but the more simulation, the more data. So to treat all this data, to use all this data in a predictive manner, talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning. So that's a little bit the 3 steps. The first one is for sure everything related more on electromagnetic thermal management, EMI, and things like that. But after we're talking self-driving, we're talking autonomous driving, and we're talking also AI and ML.
Gilles, I think that sounds incredible. I am really excited to see what comes for the next 25 years of Formula Student, but particularly in the kind of things that you're talking about. And it's great to have ANSYS involved in this whole programme of helping the students to develop their technology. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
No, you're welcome. Thank you ever so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our podcast today. It has been 2 hours of intense conversation with some incredible guests. I have to thank everyone who's come on the show today. Thank you to those who have listened in today. I will speak to you all again very, very soon. You've been listening to Impulse to Innovation, the Institution of Mechanical Engineers podcast. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you, so if you'd like to share any news or any feedback with us, then please email us podcast@imeche.org. All the information on this episode can be found in the episode notes.